All right, are you thinking about buying a house in Nevada County? If so, like before you fall in love with the cutest cabin in the woods that you've ever seen and you're just ready to dive right in, there are a few things that you need to know because buying here in Nevada County is different than buying in a big city. So if that's where you're coming from, maybe you're coming from a different state, different country, maybe a big city in California, there are a few things you absolutely need to know about buying in Nevada County. Okay, let's break it down. So the first thing I'd like to point out is the snow and climate differences within this county. So if you look at a map of Nevada County, you'll see the different zones of the climate. So depending on where you buy your home, snow can be a huge factor. Areas like Alta Sierra might get light snow, but Banner Lava Cap, Banner Mountain, or Truckee can get feet of snow in the winter, so that's something to keep in mind. For example, my grandparents moved here in the 80s and they bought a house on Cooper Road, and they didn't know, it's a little bit outside of Nevada City, they didn't realize how much snow that they would end up getting, and that caused them to not really enjoying their home and ended up moving a handful of years later. So you have to think about winter access, heating costs and type if you have a wood stove, and even your insurance can be affected depending on where you want to live in the county. So it's just something to think about, to have in the back of your mind, and to do a little bit of research, ask your agent, find out what the climate's going to be like before you just jump in, because this area is so variable. It's kind of interesting, like you really have to know it like the back of your hand to be able to give really solid advice of which roads get bad, which neighborhoods get the worst, just those fine details to help you kind of just get whatever you're actually looking for. And so you're not surprised when winter comes, because that's unfortunate. So the other thing is septic and well versus city utilities. So many homes out here, they're not on city water or sewer. Instead, you'll have like a well for your water, just so you're on your own property, you'll pull water up out of the ground and that'll be the water you'll use, and a septic system for your waste instead of the sewer system of the city. And of course, if you're within the city limits or certain areas, you'll have those things, but a lot of our rural areas, it means you are going to be responsible for maintenance, well flow tests, any potential repairs on the well or septic system on your property, rather than just relying on the city to take care of it. So that's something to get educated about too. If you're unfamiliar with these concepts, I can go over it with you, explain them. But we should also get tests on the well and the septic before we buy. Usually, if there's a well, it's standard that the buyer will do any tests that they want to do on the well, and it's standard in this area that a seller will do the inspection on the septic system and do a pump and dump is what they call it. So they'll take everything out of the tank, and so you can start fresh, and they'll have a company come out and do that and to give you an inspection report so you know what you're buying, if it's in good shape or not. That's always the goal, right? We want you to be educated and know what you're buying before you buy it so you feel comfortable. So the other thing about this area is homeowners insurance and fire risk. We are in the foothills of the Sierra Nevada mountains, and so fire danger is a real concern here. We don't have a whole lot of the other natural disasters, but we do have some fire danger, and insurance costs can vary widely depending on where you're at. So we're seeing most in this year, let's just say this day and age, if you're in city limits, if you're right downtown, sometimes you don't have to use the FAIR plan, but it's more and more common that it's almost just a given that we're going to have to use the FAIR plan for the fire insurance part of your insurance plan, and then use a different company for the wraparound. And I have some great companies that I use that I could recommend. But yeah, for new buyers who are moving into the area, California FAIR plan is usually what we're seeing. It's more expensive than maybe what you're used to. So that's something to consider. What I usually recommend, this is my little tip, and this is what I have all my buyer clients do, is when we're thinking about making an offer, like we found a house we really, really like, we'll get a couple insurance quotes before we even make the offer, so that you can do your underwriting, right, with the lender to see, okay, this is what my monthly payment is gonna be, this is what the yearly premium is, so that we can have that information as we go into writing an offer to make sure that you're still on your budget. Okay, so another thing to think about here in the foothills of Northern California is tree work and defensible space. So we are incredibly forested out here, and it's beautiful, it is gorgeous. Like, I love that we are in the forest, but that is something that we need to work with it, right? So maintaining defensible space around your home, it's not just smart, but oftentimes it can be required. So now when there's a point of sale, when there's a sale of a home, CAL FIRE comes out and they do a free defensible space inspection report on the property. So they'll tick all the boxes. Does it have too many leaves around it? Does it have too many dead bushes? Are there any, stacks of firewood too close to the home? Are there any overhanging tree branches? Any trees growing too close to the home? And they will give recommendations on what needs to be done, and they will give the new homeowner, they could have the seller do it, but they'll give that new homeowner a period of time to get that done. It's usually around 9 months, and they'll want to be called to do another inspection later after those 9 months. And so we have to be aware too, and that's something that we will look into and see. We'll get that report during escrow and see, okay, here's what's going to have to happen, what are the costs associated with that, and we can use that as part of our negotiations. If it's these crazy bids for giant tree work, then we can, negotiate with that, because now it's required in a lot of areas. It can be pricey, like getting big trees taken out and clearing the forest, especially if you're on a lot of acreage. It's expensive, it can be pricey, so that's something to consider. Don't let it scare you, but it's just another aspect of living in these rural areas. We just want to make sure your home is safe as can be from fire hazards, and also like when the trees fall down, right? It's just smart to see what the forest looks like, take out any trees that seem dangerous or dead or leaning towards your house preemptively, right? Of course, we want to protect our assets. So another thing in California, if you're coming from a different states have different ways that agency can happen, that different people can help you buy and sell a home, right? So in California, your real estate agent is licensed to represent both a buyer and a seller in a transaction. Even for the same home, I could represent the buyer on the home and the seller. It's legal, and if it feels like a conflict of interest and I'm kind of seeing how it will be a struggle to represent both sides fairly, then sometimes I will refer one side out and say, okay, you guys need to work with this person from my office or something, just to make sure that there's no question that both sides are getting equal fiduciary duty from their agents. And it's really, really important. I take that seriously. Integrity and honesty and really giving someone my all is one of my top values. So if it feels, I've had this situation before where I'm I don't know how to navigate this, because you just have to be really fair to both parties, and sometimes it's they're tricky points or whatever. But you can have that in California. You don't need to get attorneys like in other states. I know some states attorneys are what you need, the agents kind of just help put the deal together, and then the attorneys write up all the paperwork. But nope, in California, your real estate agent is capable to handle both sides. We can even do commercial properties, raw land, the whole shebang, okay? So the next thing that's kind of unique about Nevada County is that we see seller financing as an option sometimes here on land, and sometimes even on homes. And we have a lot of, interesting, unique properties that might not qualify for conventional financing. And so that's part of what my company does, is we educate people and we support these seller financing deals, which I think is really awesome because it allows purchases and sales to happen that might not otherwise happen. Sometimes people can't qualify for a conventional loan for one reason or the other, so seller financing can be an option, or the property won't qualify for conventional financing for one reason or another. So we have a lot of unique properties, a lot of unique scenarios that kind of open up the idea of seller financing. I know a lot of agents don't really know how to handle it, but it's something I've done many times. My family has even done seller financing deal. Me and my brokerage are very versed in that, so that's something I like to present as an option also. And for those of you that aren't familiar with seller financing is when the seller acts as the bank and gives the buyer a loan to buy the property. So buyer will say, okay, I'm gonna buy the property, here's my down payment, and the seller is going to carry the note. So the buyer will fully own the property, they will still hold the deed, but the old seller, the old owner, will hold the note, and so the new buyer is paying the seller a monthly payment just like they would pay to a bank for the opportunity to buy the property and take out a loan on the rest of the funds. If that makes sense, I hope that makes sense. I'm gonna make a longer video about seller financing because I feel like it can be a little bit hard to wrap your head around if you're not really familiar with it, but I don't have time here to go into all of it at the moment. But Nevada County is very rural. There's a very rural lifestyle. So for me, it's dreamy. I love being out in nature. I love the small town vibes. I love the small community. But it does come with some trade-offs, like slower internet in some areas. The internet can be harder to find. Sometimes we need to use Starlink and other options because there isn't always internet. You can have longer drives to stores and even wildlife in your yard that you might not be used to. We got turkeys, deer, bears, mountain lions, bobcats, raccoons, squirrels. It's all very wild, geese, the whole thing. So if that's what you're looking for, it's absolutely amazing, but it's just good to be prepared. Don't be afraid of the, deer in the road. And I think over time, people just start to love the amount of wildlife that we have here and how rural it is. But it can definitely be a drive to go do stuff. We don't have Costco, we don't have Sam's Club, we don't have Bass Pro Shops. The biggest chain we have is Target. We have a Target. We did have Kmart, and now we have Target. That's literally in the Wikipedia page for Grass Valley. It is so freaking funny. It's true. We had Kmart, and now it's a Target. So we have Target. We used to have to drive to Auburn to get Target, but now we have Target. But yeah, we don't have all the conveniences of maybe a bigger suburb or a bigger city, bigger areas. And that's okay with me, but you kind of have to just have that in the back of your head. We don't have a Trader Joe's. We have our local businesses, and that's part of what makes this area so special, so awesome, such an awesome place to live, is we're not just surrounded by these big chains. We have a lot more local businesses, a lot more unique businesses that makes our community thrive. So it's just a little different. It depends on where you're coming from, but it might be, depends on what you're expecting. So buying a home in Nevada County is different than buying in a subdivision. We have very few tract home areas. There are some, but a lot of our homes are super unique. They're all different. There's all little nuances about all these properties. But if you know what to expect, it can be an incredible place to own a home, raise a family, have a business, live your life in nature. So if you have questions or need a local expert, reach out to me. No matter how far in the future you plan to make a move, I'd love to help you find the perfect home here in Nevada County.